How you doing? It's Alan Peters of the Peters Design Company, as you can tell by the sign. I want to talk about a couple of things. I just finished reading this book, and after that one, I just finished reading this book. And I thought I could talk about those for a minute. And also, I have a new office. I've got a new baby on the way. You guys all probably saw that a while ago. But yeah, we have a new little boy on the way, and he's doing it in September. So one of my jobs this summer, on top of making logos and all my regular jobs, is we moved two of my oldest two boys into my office space, which is a really long room over a 3-car garage, and like it's like the length of a bowling alley pretty much. And so that we separated it with bookshelves down the middle, and the two boys have it, and they actually each have more space than they had originally with their normal rooms. Then my little guy, who's going to be 6 when the baby shows up, he's going to a new room. He's going to Luke's old room, and so I got to get that room painted and patched up, and like I have it. Basically, I'm like moving, like it's musical chairs. I'm moving all the furniture around the house, and then painting and fixing walls and washing carpets and doing all the stuff I have to do. And then so Josh is getting really excited. We got a new like hanging chair for his room, and so we're getting that all set up. And then I got to take Josh's room and get ready for. That's the room right next to ours, and so that's gonna be the baby's room. And so we're gonna get that all set up, and I'm excited to get that looking beautiful. And then Matt's old room is now my office, which it's not as big, but I have everything I need at arm's reach. There was a lot of extra space in that office. And then the other thing is since it's smaller and it's carpet instead of hardwood, the sound quality is so much better. You probably can tell from the video, like you're probably like, hey, this guy actually sounds professional for once. So that's a good thing. So it's exciting. New office space. I even have my sign off the ground. And by the way, for anybody who wants to see just the scale of this thing, look at this. It's fairly large. And so lifting that sign up, my buddy Wes came over and helped me lift it. I had all this, basically, I laid the thing flat. I made a bunch of paper on the back and did a rubbing to get a template for where all the holes were. Got it adjusted where I wanted on the wall, pre-drilled all the holes, made sure it was aligned with the middle line, because there's 4 of them down, the screws down the middle, got aligned with the stud, did it all properly, and voila, I have a sign that's not like leaning on the floor in a room where it doesn't fit. It actually fits in here, which is lovely. So about those books, so I made a decision. I've been reading like tons of sci-fi novels and fantasy and all sorts of nonfiction. And I thought, hey, you know what? I'm running a business, and I have, like, when I went to school, I used to read all the time about graphic design. Like, I should pour myself back into it and just like enjoy that, because I love to read, and I've been reading a lot, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. And so I thought, hey, let's read about some graphic designers. I have all these beautiful books that I bought because they have pretty pictures in them, and I looking through the pictures. But I thought, hey, why not? Let's read these stories and find out about these people. And what a great one to start with. Draplin's book, Pretty Much Everything. This one's great. This is, I knew right off the bat, because I'd read a couple pages here and there, that, and I've heard Draplin speak like 3 times. He came to Target. I saw him at AIJ National, and I've like watched videos online and stuff like that. He's fun. He's an entertainer. He's like a stand-up comedian on top of being an excellent graphic designer. That a charismatic fellow, you could say. And I have a lot in common with him. We love digging through like old things that people would call garbage and looking for beautifully designed vintage antiques and stuff like that. So I thought, hey, what a fun one to read. And I knew it would be a nice, easy read, casual. This is like reading this book. It's like if you have a plate of food and you have the vegetables and you have all these things that are like, oh, you have to eat these things, they're really good for you. This is like the dessert. This is like, reading this is just like easy going, fun, great book. And so he talks about his career, and he goes way back to like being born, like when he was not being born, but like, growing up as a kid and his parents and going to high school and getting into skateboarding and BMX bikes and stuff when he was young. Like he goes way back, and then talks about leaving for the first time. When he's like, I think it was like 16, or probably after high school, 18, something like that. And he goes across the country and goes and snowboards. And he lives off delivering pizzas. And just on the side, without a computer, he's like hand drawing designs and doing stuff for money. Because he has I think he had a technical college degree or something, a year or two. So maybe he was closer to 19, 20. Doesn't matter. The whole thing is, this guy was just like always going at it and always on the side and just loved the craft. And then came back, went to Minneapolis College of Art and Design, MCAD, same place so many classic, great designers went to. It's one of the most well-known and best schools for design in the Midwest. And this guy went there, which is kind of cool, hometown hero here. And he's out in Portland doing it upright. And the wealth of graphics in here, this thing is jam-packed solid of beautiful design logos, like posters. I mean, the guy is a machine. He makes stuff constantly. And when you fall in love with this craft and you're passionate about it, it's hard to turn it off. You find joy in it. Like it helps you work through things. It soothes you. So many people in life are searching for meaning, searching for pattern, searching for something that makes sense to them. And you can tell, like, when somebody has figured it out for themselves, like, hey, this is what makes sense for me. It's like all the puzzle pieces align, everything falls into place, and it kind of comes natural to him and just loves doing it. And he feels you can tell, it's just like he just has a passion for it. So an excellent read, so funny. I was laughing out loud so much. There was one part where he talks about working as a carny, and it had me in tears. He was talking about one fella who had like green teeth from drinking so much Mountain Dew, and his teeth were falling out. And it's so good. So excellent book, great design, great writer. And then we have Michael Bierut's book, Pentagram Partner. Started his career working with Massimo with Massimo. And classic, excellent graphic designer. He's done many logos that I'm sure you've seen before. Everything from the Verizon logo to, gosh, what would be a good example? Here's an example of a beautiful monogram he did for a symphony, was it? I believe so. But the nice thing I loved about reading his story, his is definitely like a portfolio show. A little bit about like, hey, here's how I grew up, but most of it's like, here's a project, and here I'll show you. I'll give you an example. Here's one for Yale School of Architecture. You have an intro page that shows kind of the image. You have 4 paragraphs. And this is kind of the template for almost the entire book. And then a spread or two of all the different pieces that fall, like of all the different pieces for that campaign. But in general, for each project, there's about 4 paragraphs, and then the descriptions for each image actually tell a lot of the story. So it's kind of nice getting in there. The interesting thing that he does that I really enjoy is he talked about his failures a lot too. Like if he was having a hard time with a client and trying to work through something and finally figured it out, and it was like he was beating his head against the wall just trying to get through something, and all of a sudden, boom, everything aligned, the stars aligned, and he got it. He talked through that story. He didn't just talk about like, hey, here's the final thing. He talked about the process and how everything, the ups and downs. And he's a very much different writer, definitely an intellectual. Talks about the concept, even the projects. I'd see some stuff in here where I was like, I don't particularly love the way that looks at times. And there's stuff in here I think it's just beautiful, but there's a couple of more If I was looking through somebody's portfolio, I might just skip over those. But I read through the whole thing, and even the ones that maybe weren't, that I didn't find to be the most beautiful thing, the stories were amazing. I learned a lot from them, and they were perfect for the clients that he made them for. He definitely he goes back to typography quite a bit. Like, a lot of his solutions are type solutions and concept within that typography. A lot of custom faces, a lot of conceptual typography, if that makes sense. Really simple, simplifying it down. Usually the solution is in the type. And so different where Draplin is like, hey, we're looking for this brand icon, this symbol, this one, this guy is definitely about, like, is the solution in the type? How do we find the right face for it? How do we customize a face for it? How do we look into the history? And so definitely two different approaches. And so I thought maybe I'd go through a few of these books as I'm reading them and share them with you. I'm reading one on Eames right now, on Charles and Ray, and that one's really interesting so far. I just read this morning that that their original, like, kind of Kickstarter to get everything going for them, they had where everything was going pretty well. They both had jobs. He was working at NGM. Ray was doing covers for some architecture magazine, and then all of a sudden, like, the war came, and they made molded, even though they made all this beautiful for basically art contests, they made all this beautiful furniture. They hadn't mass produced it yet, and they came up with a molded plywood leg splint for the military, and that all of a sudden they had to make 5,000 of those. They had to mass produce them. They were able to, with the money from the military and from the government, they were able to buy all that equipment that they would need to mass produce the furniture as well. And so it kind of kickstarted everything. The work ended up in the MoMA, and then Herman Miller picked it up. So that's their trajectory. It's always really interesting to look at these really famous designers and see, like, what was that pivot point for them where they just took off. So it's been a lot of fun digging in and reading about a lot of my design heroes. Just curious, I asked on Twitter, but in the comments below, if there's an awesome design book or a designer that I should dig into and read about, let me know. I honestly haven't read a ton of graphic designer books that are just, whether they wrote them or somebody wrote them about them. I read, like, the Stephen Heller's on Paul Rand. I've read these two in the last month. But is there? I'm going to start up the Saul Bass's book pretty soon here. So, like, what would you guys suggest? What should I look into? What have you read where it just was pivotal for you? Maybe you read it and it changed the way you thought about something, or the way that you did something. It changed your process. Let me know in the comments. And again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.